Going live.
It says you have excellent content.
Oh, you're live. Okay, it worked.
Did it?
Maybe.
We don't know until it.
We have to wait. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Why is it not working on my phone?
Huh? Cool.
I mean, it's working on yours account.
Great.
Okay.
Well. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, it's working. Should we get started now then? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get started now. So, welcome everyone. This is the assignment to Livestream. So, we're going to be discussing crepe stand. And so this assignment is based on linked lists, which started in the lectures last week. So hopefully you've seen those by now. They'll be really helpful, and a lot of the topics covered will be like quite directly in this assignment. And we'll be continuing them this week in lectures as well. And also the tutorials this week will be really, really helpful. Especially there'll be a section on multi-file systems, so it'll be good to go to your tutorials for that. But getting into the assignment itself, so it's just on the course website, it's up the top here and also on the main page. So in the same section, come in, as assignment 1 was, but down here. So I'll pop back over there. And like everything for the assignment you'll find here, so we've got a bunch of different like subheadings for all the different sections of the assignment. You can use that, all the different stages, assessment. So today we'll just be going over what the assignment involves and everything like that, and walking through each of the stages. So I guess the idea of this assignment is that we're dealing with a crepe stand order organizer. So we're pretending that we run a crepe stand and we need to keep track of like all our orders, and so that we can like use that information to, for example, keep track of our stats so that we know, like, for example, if we wanted to implement this further, like how much we need to order for ingredients and stuff like that. And there's a little blurb here for it. At the end of your assignment, it might look something like this. So we'll have like a few diagrams throughout the assignment. For each of them, you can just click on it because they're quite small in the page to make it a little bit bigger, a bit easier to see. And these diagrams are just to help you visualize what it will look like. And we really encourage you to do your own diagrams, especially when you're needing to like do things like inserting, removing, because if you can visualize it, it'll be a lot easier to see how you should change the list and things like that. But looking at this one here, so we have a list of days down here, and we'll get into the structs themselves in a little bit. But we have a linked list here of days, and you can see these are our like struct days, so like a struct node, and that you've probably seen so far in the lectures, and they're all connected with these arrows here. We've got some pointers for them as well, and we can discuss these 2 pointers later as well. And then each day we'll have another list, so this is where we've got the 2D list of lists, and then each day has its own orders list of crepes, and then the crepes have like a batter type and things like that, and again we'll get into that a little bit more as well. So I'll come back here. Like this diagram might be a bit much right now, and then we've got a simpler one we can look at for stage 1 as well. Okay, so down here, so this assignment, like I said, is based on linked lists, so you'll be using them, manipulating, solving problems using linked lists. And the structs that you'll be dealing with in this linked list are a struct day and a struct crepe. So there will be a list of struct days where each struct day points to another struct day, where the last one will point to null, so that's described there. And then struct crepes, similar thing. There will be a list of struct crepes. Each crepe will point to another crepe, unless it's the last one, which will point to nothing. So there is another struct. There are like a couple other structs we'll be dealing with, but the main other struct is the struct date. So that will store like information about a date, and it'll store 3 numbers, just 3 ints, the year, month, and day. And that will help you to like organize your list and organize each day as well. Then we have a couple of enums to deal with as well. So we've got batter type and topping type. These are just used to describe the struct crepe. And they have some values here. So batter type, there's only 3, original, chocolate, and matcha. And then topping type, you can have no topping, banana, strawberry, or Nutella. And we'll look at what these look like in the struct crepe itself when we get to the starter code. And then throughout the assignment spec itself, you'll have a bunch of hints throughout. So like here we've got a hint that just tells you whenever you create a struct crepe or a struct day, you're going to need to make sure you initialize every single field. Otherwise you could run into uninitialized errors later on. So the trickiest part might be getting started because there is a lot to read through here. There is a lot of starter code, so you might actually find just starting up to be the hardest part, but I'll walk you through how we can do that. So let me think. Okay, so first of all, where are we over here? I'm going to go over here. So the first thing you can do, just to organize yourself a bit easier, is let's just make a directory for assignment 2, and let's go there. And so we have some commands that you can follow here to download the starter code. So I recommend that you do, if you're like running your program like on Tiger VNC or VS Code with like SSHFS, I do recommend like downloading it via the command rather than the zip file. So when you do run this, so let's do that. Whoops, sorry, that'll work. Okay, so 1.1 fetch activity create stand. Okay, so when you run that command, it'll copy crepestand.h. So there is a crepestand.c file. It'll copy that, so you have your own version there. And then it says here linking crepestand.h and linking main.c. So if I do an ls here, we've got crepestand.c, crepestand.h, and main.c. So these are in blue, and it said they're linking because we're linking the actual files for these. So we like have stored these files somewhere, and so when you download these, you cannot edit them, and these are like what the reference uses, what the auto test will use. So that way you don't accidentally change anything. So the only one you can change is crepestand.c, and that's why it's copying it. So I'll open them all up here in a second. Okay, cool. So yes, I trust. So if we look at crepestand.c, like I'll go over this a bit more, but like here's just a C file where you can edit things. So if I just do that, like I can edit it, I do Control S, I'll get rid of that. And then crepestand.h, come over here, I can't actually edit it. So yeah, fail to save crepestand.h, it won't actually let you edit it because you don't have the correct permissions. So that way you won't accidentally edit anything. Sorry, go back here. So I do recommend following the fetch activity command because like that way you won't accidentally edit anything and then give yourself a headache later when you try to run your code and run the auto tests. But if you are like working locally, that's fine as well. You can download all 3 files as a zip. So you can download it here by just clicking that link and it'll download for you. The other thing is as well, since we have linked main.c and crepestand.h, if we do make any changes, those will happen automatically for you since they're linked. But if you download the zip file, they won't happen automatically because you've just copied it. But if we do make any changes, they will be on the change log at the very bottom. So we did make a small change like the day it was released. So if you did like download a zip file straight away, maybe double check that to make sure it's updated. But otherwise, if you do fetch activity, then it's all good. So once you have downloaded it, go back here, and we'll go back here. So once you have downloaded it, just to double check you've got the right code and everything's sorted, it should be, but just in case, you can auto test it straight away. So auto test crepestand. And once you do this, it should fail. If it's not failing, then that would be kind of crazy, and you've somehow downloaded the solution. But you can see all these tests are failing here. So just gonna, stop that. So yeah, all the tests should fail. I double checked it before and they all do fail, so that's good. So like expect it to fail once you've downloaded it. So looking at the starter code itself, we'll move on. So we have 3 files, and this can be a little bit confusing, especially coming from assignment 1 where you just had the 1 file. But it may hopefully make it easier in some ways at least. And again, we'll be, in this week's tutorials, that we will be dealing with multi-file. So that'll be in like a much smaller scale, so I really recommend going to your tutorials this week so we can cover that. But I will like talk about this here as well. So the three files, we've got the main file, main.c, header file, crepestand.h, and the implementation file, crepestand.c. So main.c, if we go back over here, so this is like where your main function is. So if we scroll down, there's a lot of functions here. You don't actually need to worry at all about how main.c works. You don't even need to open it. You can completely ignore it and you'll be absolutely fine. So sorry, it's actually back up here. Okay, so like usually when we've been dealing with just one file, you've got your main function in that one file. Here it's in main.c, and here is what it looks like. So it'll like deal with setting up like all the welcome messages. It'll deal with all inputs and outputs for you. So anytime like when you run the program and you type in like your command, and anytime you need to print something out, that will all happen in main.c for you. So you shouldn't ever need to use scanf or fgets or printf in this assignment. It should all be handled for you. So if you would like to, you can absolutely read this file. Just make sure you don't change it. And there should be header comments for all of the functions. If there's not, just let me know, and I can like add them in. And if we go down here, so for example, sorry, it's very fast. So for example, it prints out the helper function to tell you like how the program works. And then let's see, this example here, this function that it calls, it's grabbing this function that you implement in crepestand.c. But I won't talk about this too much because you don't need to know at all how it works. If you are more interested, feel free to like ask your tutors and stuff. But to do this assignment, you don't need to know how it works. Next file that we'll look at is crepestand.h. So this is the header file. So you'll notice that main.c includes it as crepestand.h, and so does crepestand.c. They're both included there. So here's our header file, and this will consist of a bunch of hash defines. So we've got a bunch of constants here that will be used both in main.c and your implementation file in crepestand.c. So I do recommend like each function, each stage spec will explain like what hash defines to use, but they should all exist in crepestand.h. And then we've also got the enum definitions here as well. So batter type, topping type that we talked about before. And then the struct date is also defined here as well, because both crepestand.c and main.c need to use it. So it's existing in both of those, for both of those in crepestand.h. And then we have a couple other structs as well. So these structs are for later stages in the assignment. So I think this one should be for stage 2, stage 2 as well, stage 3, stage 4. So all of these structs here, they will be explained when you get up to that stage. You don't need to know how they, like everything about them just yet, but there are comments here explaining what they do. So don't worry about it like until you read up to that part of the assignment. And then we've also got some forward declarations for struct crepe and struct day. That's because struct crepe and struct day, they are defined in crepestand.c. But since the header comments for the functions here will use struct crepes and struct day, we have a forward declaration just so they know that they will be like defined later and will be used later. So here, all these functions here, these are all the header, like the function prototypes for all of the functions you will need to implement yourself. So each of the function prototypes, like for example, create day, they will have a header comment here explaining the parameters, returns, and what it does. And then they should match up exactly in crepestand.c. So make sure in crepestand.c you're not changing the return type or the arguments of any of these functions. So they should also be organized in terms of stages as well. And yeah, they're all just prototypes basically. There's nothing too crazy going on in this file. Yeah, so that's it for crepestand.h. Last one, crepestand.c. This is the only one that you will be editing. It's the only one you'll be changing and writing yourself. So this is like the only one you need to look at. crepestand.h and main.c you don't even need to look at. Okay, so we've got like the header comment up here. This is where you'll be, filling in out your name, date, a short description of the program as well. And then we've got as well some libraries already included for you. We've got the hash include for the header file as well. And then we've got some hash defines here. So they're just there so that you don't need to create them yourself, since this is kind of like you have to write string, or not strings but characters, so we're just making it a little bit easier to already have these hash defines defined for you. And feel free to create any more hash defines that you'd like. You might have to for some numbers, some mins and maxes. Any other enums as well, if you'd like to make them, they can go here as well. Okay, so in this assignment now we can talk about the struct crepe and the struct day. We've finally gotten up to it. So again, this is a linked list assignment, and the linked list you'll be dealing with is a linked list of struct crepes defined here, and a linked list of struct day, and the struct day is defined here. So a crepe so far has all of these fields in it. So we've got a name, so customer name, that's just the name of the person who ordered the crepe. Batter type, called enum batter type called batter. Again, that's just what type of batter it is. So again, it's our original, chocolate, and matcha. Then we've got topping down here, and same topping as the enums we talked about before. Is gluten free, so that's just going to be 1 or 0. So 1 if it is gluten free, 0 if it's not. Diameter centimeters, so again, just the number of how big the diameter of a crepe is. And that we've got a range for that as well. That should be specified in the spec as well. And then since we're dealing with a linked list, at the very last field we've got here is a pointer to a struct crepe called next. So that whenever you create a struct crepe, you need to make sure that to make it an actual linked list, it points to another struct crepe, or null if it's the last one in the list. Struct day, so we'll go down here. So struct day, again, we'll be dealing with a linked list of struct days. And so the fields of this one, we've got a date, which is a type struct date, which we saw in crepestand.h. And again, a struct date is just a year, month, day, just 3 ints. And then we've got a pointer to a struct crepe called orders. So this is the head of the orders list, which is the list of struct crepes. So we just talked about the struct crepes list up here in struct crepe, and they will be stored in a particular day. Then we've got the next field, income. So that's just how much money was made on a particular day, and it's a double for this one. And then since the struct day should also be a linked list of struct days, we have the next field as well. Very similar to the struct crepes next field, but in this case we're pointing to another struct day, so that's a list of struct days. Okay, so maybe before we look at the rest of crepestand.c, we'll go back to the terminal and I'll clear that. We'll talk about the reference solution as well. So similar to assignment 1, we have a reference solution for you to play around with, and it's going to be run by just typing, not CS, crepestand. So literally just 1511 crepestand, run that, and this will be the implemented version of crepestand. So your program should try and behave like this. So whenever you start up crepestand, you're going to need to enter a date for the first day in the list, and then we're dealing with dates in year, month, day format, so biggest to smallest. So let's say 2024, it's the 4th, 02. Okay, so it's the 2nd of April, so we'll do 2024-04-02, just like that. And now we've set up our crepestand, we've started. And then if you want to play around with it, I recommend the first command you could try and run is the question mark. So this will, I'll make this a bit bigger. Okay, so this will print out all the different commands that there are when you run crepestand. So we've got A for appending, P for printing, and then you can have a read through of this. It should have all of the commands there. So let's look at these commands. Let's have a look. Okay, let's see this A command here. So this appends a crepe to the end of the orders list. So we want to add a crepe to our struct days list of orders. So let's try that. and we can see like what fields we need for there. So we'll go over like the sub-stages as well, but if I wanted to append a crate, I would say the crate type. So let's say I want to create a custom crate, and don't worry too much about this, we'll cover it a little bit later as well. So if I want to create a custom crate for me, Olivia, and I want it to be, but when you pass in the batter type and the topping type, you can pass in like 0, 1, 2 for the batter, so original 0, chocolate 1, and matcha 2. So I'll say 0, and I'll say I don't want any toppings either, and so I'll say 0 again. And then the next thing, I've got to double check. So batter, topping, is it gluten-free or not, and the size. I'll say it is gluten-free, and I'll say it's 25 centimeters big. Cool. Then it'll print out Olivia's crepe added. And then if I scroll back and look at more commands, there's a P command that will print out all of the crepes in the order list. So if I just type P, and then you can see here, it's going to print out like the details about the crepes I've ordered. So we'll stop there for like looking at it now. Whenever you want to end the program, you can press Control D, or you can press Q as well, but we'll just do Control D, same as assignment 1, and then it's done. And then like whenever you do run the crepe stand, it won't let you do like invalid dates, so like, or like invalid formats. If I do like 2020-01-01, it won't work. It's just so that like to save you hassle later if you did accidentally like write the wrong format, it'll make sure that that won't go through. So maybe we'll go back to crepestand.c now and continue looking at the starter code here. So in crepestand.c, it will consist of a bunch of function stubs for you to implement. So if we look down here, for example, create day, this is just like the bare bones of a function, so it hasn't actually got any implementation done yet. But we can see it's called create day, and it returns a struct day pointer, takes in a struct dates, and then we've got like the to-dos and a printf saying it's not implemented yet, and it'll just exit. So that will look the same for all of these functions here. So when you do go to implement a function, make sure that you remove like this whole section. Otherwise, if you still have the exit, it's not going to work. So just make sure you remove that and then start writing your implementation. So if we come back here, so this will be also split into, like, for example, all the stage 3 functions are under a little subheading there. And yeah, they all look like basically the exact same. If we get down to the bottom, we have some helper functions here. So these are like, you don't need to do any printing or any scanning in this assignment. Just to make things easier though, when you are printing a list of crepes, the printing will have to happen in crepestand.c, but we do have a function that will help you do that. So there's a print single crepe function that will print just like the format for one crepe, and you need to pass in the information. And again, like things will be explained as they come up in each stage. And then we've got an arrow printing, so this will literally just print the arrow for you. It'll have a print no crepes function as well, so that you can print out there's no crepes if there are no crepes. And then since we need to print out the days later as well, there's a since we need to print out the day as well, we've got a function for that as well. So that's all there. And again, all of this should be explained as you reach it in the assignment. Okay, so maybe we'll go back here. And okay, cool. So that's mostly it for the starter code. I know it can be a lot, but again, hopefully once you like get started, it will make a bit more sense. And also, again, the tutorials this week will be very helpful. So compiling. So again, this is going to be a little bit different as well from when you compile just a single file. So there's a command that you can copy here. So that should work. Oops, sorry, that way. Okay, cool. So whenever you want to compile, it's the same like DCC. Then you need to say the two C files that you're compiling. So crepestand.c and main.c, they're the two C files. Then output into the executable name. So we're just going to call it crepestand. You don't need to like include the H header file because that is hash included. So you don't don't need to accidentally do that or anything. It's just the C files you're compiling. So when we run that, it should compile. Great, it compiles. Then you just run it the same way you'd run any program, so /executable name, and we'll run that now. So this should also like work for now, like as we'll go back and do it properly. So if you enter like today's date, it will stop working because we haven't actually implemented anything yet. And since we have in crepe_stand.c all of the printfs and exits for each of the unimplemented functions, whenever they're not implemented and you try to use it, your program will just exit there. Cool. So let's go back to the next part. Okay. And yeah, hopefully, like again, once you get started, it will be a lot easier. But I understand that it can be confusing with multi-file, but hopefully it'll be all good. Okay. Reference implementation, we talked about this a little bit already. Again, it's just 1511 crepe stand, and then as long as you're in a CSE terminal, and then you can use it to your heart's content, and it should work for everything. So again, if there's anything wrong, just let us know on the forum. So we'll move on from there. Okay, starter code as well. Okay, we've already talked about this as well. Okay, big warning here, and I'll say it again. Do not change main.c or crepestand.h, and also do not change the return type or parameters or the amount of parameters in any of the function stubs in crepestand.c. So that's like, we'll go up here. So for example, insert crepe custom, do not change any of the arguments there, do not change the return type. These need to match up because these functions are being called in main.c. So if you do change them here, you'll get like an error, won't work. Cool. Okay, actually yes, another good point here. If you want to make your own functions, and you should make your own functions, like even though we've provided them for you, you will still need to make your own functions. If you would like to do that, there should be a spot up the top. I'll scroll down a bit, up a bit. Okay, cool. So we've got like a little comment here where you can add any prototypes of functions that you make. So prototypes, they should still be at the top of your program. So make sure like you add them here. So we've got like a stage 1 section. You can add any stage 1 functions, you create prototypes there. And then, oh yeah, so as we can see, the stage 1 prototype already has one here, create crepe. That is because create crepe is not called in main.c. It's the only one that's not called in main.c. It's going to be called in crepestand.c by like your code. So this is the only one that is down here, because you'll be calling it yourself. Another important thing as well that I forgot to mention, I'll come back up to the struct crepe, struct day. So since these are defined in crepestand.c, you are like allowed to change them and like add any fields, any of that. Feel free to do that. As long as like all the return types and arguments for any of the provider functions like unchanged. But if you are like, for example, adding some fields to your struct crepe, make sure that in your create crepe function here that you're like making sure that you're initializing all of those fields as well that you're adding. But we'll talk about that a bit more when we get to stage 1.1. But yeah, so you can change struct crepe and struct day. Feel free to add any fields that you'd like to. That's all good.
Just to clarify, we can't change any parameters of our functions. You can only change what's inside.
Yeah, that's right. So like all of these, like a pen crepe, you can't change any of these fields here. Can't change the return type. They should all stay the same. But create crepe is the only one that you can change. So there is an exception to this, because create crepe is not called in main.c. It's only called in crepestand.c. So this is the only function, and it's like got its prototype in crepestand.c itself. So it's like you can physically change it. So yeah, this is the only one that you can change. Cool, then we'll go back over here. Okay. Oh yeah, so back to functions. If you are adding any functions, feel free to like add them to the bottom of each stage's function implementations. And you should be writing your own functions. And the function comments, you should be writing them as well. So all of the provided function stubs, their function comments exist in CRAPESTAN.h, but for any functions that you create, just feel free to add the function comments just on the line above where you implement them. Okay, oops, not there, back here. Okay, next section, okay, allowed C features. So since this is a assignment based on linked lists, you cannot use arrays to for the list of days or the list of crepes. So specifically, the list of crepes and the list of days should be represented as a linked list. So a struct crepe pointing to a struct crepe pointing to null, etc. So make sure that you're using linked lists there. And you cannot use anything that is banned in the style guide. So the style guide, I recommend just having a quick read of it, having a quick skim through. It's not that long, and it'll be useful to read it now rather than at the end, and then you have to go back and change a bunch of things. And you will also be able to do this assignment only knowing knowledge taught up to week 9, like week 8 and 9. Everything up until then you can use and should use, and you don't need any extra knowledge. Everything that you'll need, you'll be taught. So here are some C features, the only ones that you'll need to use to get full marks. So we've got the variables, enums, structs, if statements, while loops, creating your own functions, pointers, so we're dealing with linked lists, strings, so we'll be dealing with strings like the customer name, that's a string there, linked lists themselves, the standard libraries, so you should only need these ones, and then make sure to have good style as well. So you shouldn't need to use anything else, and if there are things that you would like to use, make sure that you're still following the style guide. So if they're banned, don't use them. And if it says avoid, maybe you can discuss it with your tutor as well before you commit to using it. And also, if you do use stuff that is banned or where it says in the style guide, please avoid using this. You might not get as much help from tutors. Like if you're stuck in a help session, for example, they might not be able to help you as easily. So we do recommend just using stuff taught in 1511. And yeah, if the style guide explicitly bans it or strongly discourages it and you're using it too much, or in cases where you shouldn't be using it, you can get marks deducted there. Okay. So now we'll look at the assignment a little bit more in depth. But are there any questions so far on anything at all? Okay, then we'll just keep going. Okay, so we have 4 stages in the assignment, similar to assignment 1, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and they each build on the previous stage. So stage 1 is where you're starting to create your list of struct crepes, and then we'll build upon that in each of the later stages. So I do recommend trying to do the assignment in order. It'll probably be a lot easier. And they get a little bit more complex as you go. So stage 2 is going to be a bit more complex than stage 1, etc., etc. And we do hope that everyone is able to do stage 1. Most people can do stage 2, and then stage 3, it's good if you give it a go. And then stage 4, we don't expect everyone to do. So it's more just extra stuff that's not needed to pass this assignment. You can still do very well in this assignment without doing stage 4. Okay, so let's look a bit more in detail. Okay, so we've got a note here. You can assume your program will never be given invalid inputs, so it won't give you a command that doesn't exist. It won't give you, and when we test your program as well, we won't give you invalid dates. They'll all be in the format of 2024-04-02. Yeah.
In the stage 1 stage, how to handle the invalid inputs, so I can just ignore that part.
In stage 1.
Yeah, just handling any invalid inputs.
Oh yeah, so sorry, I guess it's worded not great. The invalid inputs we're talking about here is, for example, if the diameter was way too big or something. The date itself won't be an invalid input. It's just stuff like diameter being 100, and we can't make a crepe that big, sort of thing. But the dates that are passed in, when we auto test and auto mark, they will all be in the valid format. So stuff like that you don't have to worry about. And main.c should also handle any invalid inputs and stuff as well. So you shouldn't need to worry about any of this. Yeah, all of the scanning and printing will be done for you in main, with the exception of printing out the list of crepes, which there is a helper function for in crepestand.c. And here's our live stream link, so you're watching that now, I guess, so we'll move on. Okay, so stage 1. So this is where we're basically just setting up our list of Struct crepes. So we won't really be worrying about the Struct day so much. It'll mostly be dealing with a list of Struct crepes. So we have like a little overview here where it just specifies the different subsections of this stage. And so like all of the different stages will have like a little overview at the top. And we've got a little diagram here that'll show you what it'll look like at the end. So maybe I'll zoom in. How do I zoom in on that?
Command plus.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, so you might have to zoom in a little bit, but here's like what it should look like at the end of stage 1, where we have like a single day. We're not dealing with that list of days yet. We just have one day, and then we have 2 pointers that point to this Struct day. So we have one that specifies that this is the very first day in the list, and one that specifies this is the current day. Again, you won't have to worry about this too much until later stages, but they do exist. So we have the first Struct day here, and that date will be the day that you first enter when you run the program. So the important thing that we're looking at in stage 1 is this list of crepes here. So we can see like we have an orders list in our Struct day. So that points to, so it contains the address of the first Struct crepe. So it points to it over here. And then we've got some information about that crepe. So we've got a name, the batter, topping, is it gluten-free, the size, and the next pointer. So this will store another address of another Struct crepe, or it will just be null. So if we go for this one, it'll go to another one, which will go to another Struct crepe, which will just have null because it's not pointing to anything else. It's the end of the Struct crepes list. So there's one thing here, and we'll go back. Okay. So that's what it should look like, and yeah, for these diagrams, they're kind of a little bit small here, so just click on it to make it a bit bigger. Okay, 1.1. So for all of the stages in this assignment, you will either have to implement 1 or 2 functions. Most of the time it will be 1, but sometimes a couple times it'll be 2. So for 1.1, there are 2 functions that you need to implement, and that's going to be create day and create crepe. So we have, actually I need to change this here. This will not be a char star new date, this will be a Struct date new date. So this will be correct in like your files itself, it's just here, it hasn't been updated yet. So pretend that says Struct date new date. Okay, so stage 1, we're just basically going to create these functions that are going to like handle all the malloking and initializing of Struct crepes and Struct days for us. This sort of stuff will have been covered in the lectures already, and we'll be dealing with this in the labs this week as well. So that's another thing as well. The labs this week, if you can, it might be good to start off with those and then look at the assignment, because there will be a lot of similar stuff going on. So probably be a little bit nicer to start off on a smaller scale, then come and look at the assignment. But tangent aside, we'll come back to this. So yeah, here are the stubs that we've got here. Struct day, we'll create day and create crepe. And we've got some information here. So create day, like most of the other functions, this will be called in main.c. Main.c will call this function whenever a day needs to be created. But create crepe, like we discussed, is the exception to the rule, where this will be called in crepestand.c by like a line of code written by you. So you will have to decide when to call this function. And create day, yeah, this will be called like right after you type in like the date. This will be called for you. And crepes, create crepe, you should probably call this whenever they try to add a crepe to the list or insert a crepe to the list of crepes. So for create day, we've got a list of tasks here for both of them. So create day, you need to create a new Struct day, use malloc, and then make sure you're copying in the past new date into the correct Struct field, and then initialize all other fields to some reasonable value and return a pointer to this newly created Struct date. So if we go back to the code, and we look at a struct day, so this is what you will need to create using malloc. And we can see there are 4 fields here. You'll need to make sure all of these are initialized when you are creating a day. So struct date, well, you happen to be passed in a struct date, so might be a hint there what you should set date to be. Orders, this is going to be appointed to the start of the list of struct crepes. So at the beginning of the day, before like any customers have come to order any crepes, probably there shouldn't be any crepes in this orders list. So maybe have a think about what that should be set to. Income, same idea. If we've just started the day, how much money have we made? Probably not that much money yet. So I'll just say now it's going to be 0, so you need to make sure you set that to 0. And then next, so the next day, so currently we're creating one day, and then we need to think about what we want its next to be. If we've only got one day, we probably just want that to stay as one day. So similar to orders, maybe have to think about what that should be set to as well. And we'll go back this way. So create crepe, very similar. You're going to be creating a crepe this time. We're still going to be using malloc. So we'll go back to look at the struct crepe definition. So we've got a couple more fields to deal with than this one. So we've got customer name, batter, topping is gluten-free, diameter, and the next. So we'll look at next first. Similar to the next for struct day, probably want to think about what this should be at the beginning. You might need to change it later, but when you're first creating a crepe, you can probably set it to be as if it was at the end of the list. Customer name, batter, topping is gluten-free, diameter centimeters. This should all be passed to the function. So if we look at create crepe here, we can see it takes in a bunch of arguments, and these all happen to be all of the fields in a struct crepe aside from the next pointer. So you'll be passed in provided all of this information. Or at least when you call the create crepe function, you should pass in all of this information. And I'll also say as well, since here, char star customer name, that's going to be a string. Since strings, you can't just say string 1 equals string 2. There is a special way to do it, and we should have a, oh, maybe we don't have a section. Maybe you got it got okay. Okay, so where did we go? So yeah, we can't say string 1 equals string 2, since like a string is like an array of characters with the null terminating character at the end. We need to make sure that each of those are like copied across. So there is a great function that you can use to do this, and it's string copy, so strcpy. And if we go over to the terminal, whenever you like are not sure of how a function works, feel free to just look it up in the man pages. So man's strcpy. And it'll give you all this great information. It'll tell you what library it's included in, and then down here, here's string copy. It tells you it takes in 2 strings. The first one is the destination, that's kind of what that stands for, and then the source. And then if we scroll down, here's like a little description as well. So you can have a read of this. Basically, it'll just copy the source into the destination. So that's how you can copy a string, set one to be another. We'll go back. And then the rest of them should be pretty simple for setting a variable to be another one. Okay. So for stage 1.1, there's no like error handling required. Error handling will happen in later stages. And there are also no auto tests for this stage. That's because there's no outputs when you call create crepe. And it'll be tested like a bit more when you add a crepe. So if it's not added correctly, then there may have been something wrong with your create crepe function. And so yeah, here are some assumptions. The date will always be in this format, so you never need to do any error handling for the date itself. It will always be valid, so don't worry about that. And okay, yeah, cool. Initial income should always be 0.0. There should be no income made when the day has just started. And there are also no orders as well. And yeah, no testing. And then yeah, like you can kind of see if you're on the right track by just compiling your code as well. So, I keep going the wrong way. Go back here. So if I scroll down, so here they are. We can see like, yeah, they're correct. It's a struct date, new date. So don't worry, it should be all correct there. So when you do start this off, just like remove the to-do, the printf, and the exit, and then you're going to probably need to call malloc here and then set each of the fields, and create crepe is going to look quite similar. So all you'll need to do is these two functions. Don't need to touch anything else. Cool, then we'll go back over here. Okay, 1.2. So this is where we're actually going to be creating our linked list. So we need to actually add some crepes to our current day. So, okay. So whenever you run your program, create day will be called for you in main.c, and it will call your function that you implement, and it will hopefully, if you've implemented correctly, create a struct day. So it'll create like this struct day over here. And then next, orders should be null at the beginning. Then whenever we want to add a actual crepe, there might be a diagram here as well. Yeah, okay. So like before adding any crepes, it'll look like this. Just nothing there, just a couple pointers to it. And then down here, once we've added a single, actually I'll go back. So in this struct day here, we can see orders is null. There's no struct crepes that it points to yet. There's no list of crepes. But we go down here, when you have added a crepe, now it should store an address of the first crepe that's added, and it points to that struct crepe over here, and since it's the only one in the list, it is also null. And this function will add crepes to the end of the list. So when there's nothing in the list, you're adding it to the start of the list because there's nothing in the list, so it'll be the head crepe. But once you add something else, we can see this crepe here belongs to Leslie. Leslie ordered that. And if we go down here, when we add another crepe belonging to Ben this time, Ben is added to the end of the list. So Leslie still remains the head of the list of crepes. So again, diagrams will be really helpful here. You don't have to draw them in like full-on detail like this. You can just make it really simple. Maybe you can just have like a circle that just says like Leslie in it and then points to a circle that says Ben, something like that. You can keep it really simple, but diagrams will be quite helpful. Okay, so the append crepe function itself. So whenever customers would like to order a crepe, there's two different kinds of crepes they can order. They can order a custom one where they design it themselves, they pick the batter, the topping, etc., etc. Or they can create one that's already been designed. So we have 3 of those. These are called our signature crepes. We've got Matcha Madness, Strawberry Special, and Chocolate Connoisseur. Don't worry, you will not have to spell connoisseur ever. It took me a long time, but now I think I can spell it correctly. But you don't have to spell it, it's all good. And this will also, having the signature crepes might save you some time when you run your program yourself. You can just type in what signature crepe it is instead of all of the details of a custom crepe. They should behave in the same way other than that. So whenever a customer would like to order a signature crepe, for example, Matcha Madness, these are the what the fields of the crepe should be set to. So if they're ordering a Matcha Madness, the batter type should be matcha, the topping should be strawberry, it should not be gluten-free, and it should be a medium size, or 25 centimeters specifically, which is size medium, which we'll look at a little bit later as well. And then we've got some fields for strawberry and chocolate as well. So basically, whenever one of those is made, you just need to make sure that you're setting the fields correctly to these values. And then when you run the actual append crepe function itself, so I think I ran this a little bit when we were looking at the reference, but this is the format. So this is kind of a mouthful here as well, but let's break it down. So the first thing you'll type is A, which will represent the A commands, appending. Then the crepe type. So we've got down here a list of what that can possibly be. It'll be one of 4 things. Custom, if it's a custom one where they design it themselves. Matcha for Matcha Madness, Strawberry for Strawberry Special, Chocolate for Chocolate Connoisseur. And yep, there's all of those there. And then if it is a custom crepe, they will type in the details of that custom crepe. So the batter type, the topping type, if it's gluten-free, and the size. And then if it's a signature crepe, they won't add any of this information. And don't worry, all of this will be handled for you in main.c. You don't have to worry about figuring out when to scan. And if you're interested, feel free to go have a read of how it does that. But you will be passed in all of the correct information that you need. So, and yeah, there's the note for that there. here's all the diagrams that we looked at already. But yeah, end of stage 1.2 should look something like this, where you've got a single struct day that's created when you just start up the program, and then you can append crepes. So appending is adding to the end of the list. With this as well, appending crepes, there is, I'm pretty sure, a lab this week that is, insert tail, I think. Oh, tune activity as well, yeah. So again, this assignment might be a little bit hard to jump straight into if you haven't wrapped your head around linked list yet, but the tutorial and the lab this week will handle, for example, appending to the end of the list. So that will be very, very similar to this part of the assignment. So I do recommend trying to do that first. Yeah.
Do we handle traversing the linked list, or does the main do that for us?
You will handle traversing the linked list. So you would be given like the head of the linked list, like depending on if you're dealing with the days list or the crepes list, you'll either be given the head day or the head crepe, depending on what's needed. So the functions itself, so each of the sections of the assignment will specify like what the function stubs will look like, but like this should be, they might not, if there's any mistakes here, just let us know, but they should be the exact same as in the provided code, but if in doubt, go with the provided code. That should be all good for now. The issue would probably with the updated website if there's any issues. So again, this one has 2 to implement. So, and this is just kind of to make your lives easier. So we have append crepe custom and append crepe signature, because signature doesn't need as much information, but custom does. So it will provide you all of the information that you need, which will be taken from standard input. And yeah, same with signature crepe. So those are there. Let's have a look. Yeah, so there's some more explanations in crepestand.h itself above the function prototype for each of the functions, so feel free to have a read of those as well. But let's look at the, oops, I keep going the wrong way. Starter code here. Okay. So append crepe custom, append crepe signature, here they are. So custom, you're passed in current day. So this will be like literally the current day of the list. So looking at the diagram, that will be this day here. So it'll pass you that, which means you can access the orders since a struct day stores a list of orders. Here's the list, and you should be able to go into that order there and set it accordingly. And it's also got all the details about the crepe that they're ordering. So in this append crepe custom, you will need to actually create a crepe. Might be helpful to call your create crepe function, I would assume, and then make sure that you're accessing the orders list in the past in current day and appending to the end of that orders list. Same for append crepe signature, except this time you're passed in just what type of signature crepe it is. So this crepe type, that will either be matcha, chocolate, or strawberry. So you just need to check which one it is. There's a function, another helpful function for that called string compare, strcmp. Feel free to have a look at that on the man pages as well. So you can use that to check what kind of signature crepe you're making and then set the fields according to the table up here. Where did it go? Up here. But probably move on from there. Okay. And then here's some more like information about them as well. Okay, so the other important thing is that these functions will both return an int. So we can see that they're both int. For now, you should just return valid crepe. So this is defined in crepestand.h. So for now, just at the end, return valid crepe. And then once we get to stage 1.4, which is like the error handling, you may have to change it to other constants to make sure it matches up. And then we'll see that more in stage 1.4. Here's our hint again. No error handling yet because this will happen in 1.4. And there's some assumptions there. And then also for like each of the stages, we've got some examples here. I do recommend before you go straight to the auto test, once you've finished a stage, just test your code with the examples first, because auto tests are really great, except sometimes they can be harder to like read and understand what they're exactly saying. But if you run the examples yourself, I find it a little bit clearer, so I do recommend doing that before going to the auto tests. Cool. And then also at the end of each substage, there will be a little command that you can run that will auto test just that specific stage, so that you don't have to sit there through all like 40 auto tests, which could take a little bit of time. So I do recommend running that at the end of each stage as well. Okay, 1.3. So in 1.2 we tried to add a crate to the end of the list, but once you do run that, all it will print out is, if we actually just look at the example. So once you add it, you'll say like A Matcha Leslie. All it will print out is that like that person's crate was added to the orders. So even if you like didn't implement it properly, because we're dealing with all the printing and scanning for you, as long as you return valid crate, like it will print out this message and you will pass the auto tests. So once you get to stage 1.3, this is where we're printing out the details of each of the crepes in the orders. So if you find that you're failing 1.3, the issue might not be 1.3 itself, but might actually be in 1.2. So they're quite closely linked. So this command is a lot simpler than appending, where it's literally just P, and it will print out the current day's list of orders. So crepes ordered on today's. And again, stage 1, you're just dealing with one single day, so don't worry about that too much. And again, we've got like the stub here, and this one takes in current day. So most of the functions will take in the current day, so that you know which like orders to access. It'll be the provided current day orders. And this is like the first one where there's just one for you to implement. So we talked about it before as well, but for printing crepes, there are the helper functions that you can call. So print single crepe, which takes in a crepe and the position of that crepe, so which position in the list it is, and it will print out all the details for you. So the other like little tricky part of this stage is that if we look down here, this is how each crepe list of orders of crepe should be printed. They have a position number, and it's just one, like indexed from 1. So the head crepe should be 1, the one it points to should be 2, etc., etc. So that if I, for example, wanted to add a crepe, and let's say, yeah, I was just appending a crepe, it should go after Ron's crepe here and should have position 4. And then when you get up to stage 2, when you're inserting, where you might add a crepe to the middle of the list, you need to make sure that the positions still update correctly. And then there's also a function that you can call that will print out no crepes have been ordered yet. Cool. So we've got some more examples here. So if there's no crepes that you haven't called a pen crepe yet, it'll print out no crepes have been ordered. Otherwise, if you have ordered some, so we've ordered a signature crepe here, a custom one, and another signature one, and when we print it out, we can see that they are all printed here in all their details. Cool. 1.3, again, this is another auto test for 1.3. Recommend doing that after checking the examples yourself. Okay, 1.4 is when we're actually getting to like the errors that we were talking about a little bit before. So looking at, go back up to append crepe, I think. Okay, append crepe custom. We basically did check that all of the inputs were valid. So if they gave us a valid batter, a valid topping, a valid gluten-free value, a valid diameter. So we need, like, these are all the things you need to check. And if any of these are not valid, so they're not like a value that we've said that they should be, we have a bunch of constants for you to return. So remember before I said just return valid crate? This is where you would come back and change it if needed to return invalid batter, invalid topping, etc., etc. So here are like the cases where things are invalid. So batter, it has to be one of the like enum values, so original chocolate matcha. Same for topping. Gluten-free can only be 0 or 1, and size has to be between 10 centimeters and 40 centimeters inclusive. And the order of this is important as well, so just make sure that you're following it in this order, because if a crepe had multiple errors, like none of these were correct, it shouldn't print out all the error messages. It should, because it's only going to return one thing, so make sure you return whatever error happened first. So if it had all of these invalid, it would actually just print out the batter was invalid. Okay, cool. So there's some assumptions as well. Custom main name, it'll be less than max string length. I'm pretty sure this is defined in crepestand.h as well. And then you can assume that anytime, like there's like always like unique names. If somebody orders, like if I ordered a crepe twice, Olivia ordered a crepe and then Olivia ordered another crepe, you can assume that's the same person ordering the crepes. You don't need to try and distinguish that. But that's not really so important for this stage, it's just if you were thinking about it. So here we've got some like error checking here, examples. So we can see invalid batter, invalid topping, invalid gluten friendly option, invalid size, etc, etc. So like here's what it should look like, and again all of this printing will be handled for you. You just got to make sure you return the correct value. So last substage of 1.5, we're finally here. So this is literally just counting the number of crepes in the current day. I'm pretty sure this is also in this week's tute as well. So again, this week's tute will be very, very helpful. Recommend going to that. So yeah, you're literally just going to be passed in the current day, like the same as like every other function mostly that we've been dealing with so far. And you need to count how many orders are in the order list. So how many crepes are in that list, and then just return that number. So again, so every single substage in this assignment will have this function stub here, and the header file, crepestand.h, will have the comments as well that will describe what these functions do, what they take in, and what they return. So if you're ever unsure, like, oh, I can see it returns an int, but I don't know what that int should be, feel free to just have a read of crepestand.h, and it may also be in the spec, I can't remember, but crepestand.h will definitely have it there. And yeah, this is all pretty similar to other stuff. Okay, so once you're finally done with a stage, make sure like you are auto testing, and if you're happy with that, feel free to give it. Okay, so down here, you can run style on it. So we are style marking. We're just going to be style marking crepestand.c. So that's like you don't need to worry about changing style for crepestand.h or main.c. Don't worry about that. Just look at style for crepestand.c. So yeah, feel free to run 1511 style. Again, similar to assignment 1, this is not like definitive. It doesn't catch everything. So make sure that you're reading your code as well. And like style, not only is it helpful for us when we're marking and for your marks, it'll probably be helpful for you when you're like reading your own code and writing it as well. And style is 20% of the mark, same as assignment 1, so try and keep it in mind like from the beginning. And just because we have created those function stubs for you, you will need more functions than just those ones. So make sure like you still need to follow the function line length and stuff like that. Okay, so next part, auto test it, and we've got like the general stage auto test as well, so this will test all of stage 1. And then we've got finally the give command, similar to any other time you've given something in this course, but this time for crepestand. And I recommend like anytime you finish a stage or a sub-stage, just like give it then. There's no harm in giving. Like we will only take your latest submission, and that way you'll have like a list of all your backups in case you maybe like delete your program or something, or like you broke it so bad and now you need to figure out how to go back to where you were. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, you can like check your submission history in the submissions tab over here. So yeah, recommend auto testing and giving. Okay. Should I talk about the other stages quickly? No. So there are other stages of the assignment, but just feel free to have a read of those. So assessment, this is all very similar, if not the exact same as assignment 1. So this is assignment, it's assessed, it is individual, so please do not like share your code with others, don't work together. This should be all your own work. There's an exception, you can use small amounts of code, general purpose code, but make sure that you like have a comment that clearly shows where you got that code from and like is clearly citing that. And again, if you're not sure, like if you're doing this properly, just feel free to ask your tutor. It's better like, you know, you can let us know, like it'll be okay. We will be checking for plagiarism, so like you will be caught, it will happen, so like try and avoid it if you can. And if you feel like you might be heading down that path accidentally, you might have something that might count, you feel like you're so stuck that you feel like you have to do that, please just come and talk to us. Let us know. We can give you extra help. We can help you get started. We can help you We will continue to help you all the way, every single time. So please come and talk to us so that we can get you back on track, and get you in a better state for this assignment. And yeah, don't get help from anyone else, because you could accidentally be plagiarizing and cheating and like that. So just to be safe, just try and get help just from course staff. So in your labs, in help sessions, on the forum, emails, anything like that. There's heaps of resources and ways to get help. So please do ask us for help. Yeah, same as assignment 1, don't post your code on the forum. As long as you auto test or give, we can see your code. So you don't need to worry about posting it on the forum. And yeah, if you do, if you do cheat, you're not writing it yourself, you're not learning it yourself, so you're not really doing yourself any favors either, so it's better. Again, if you're unsure about something, just come and ask us and we'll teach you so that you can understand what you're writing. So code synthesis tools like GitHub Copilot, ChatGPT, AI, any of that, can't use it. It also counts as plagiarism, so please don't use it. And again, you're not actually understanding it as well. Yeah, don't share your code, anything like that. Only show it to staff. Don't post it anywhere after you're done, because sometimes we like to reuse assignments and things like that. So people have extensions as well, so please don't post it anywhere. I think that's all of the assessment stuff. And yeah, if you do violate any of this, you will get a 0 for the assignment and possibly the course, and there are also lots of other consequences as well, and here they are. So yeah, probably best to avoid it if you can. And then yeah, feel free to have a read of this as well. So when you're submitting, yeah, here's give again, in case you missed it the first time. And I guess this is kind of just what I was saying here, just give, don't worry if it's not passing any tests yet. It's better just to give whenever you remember, so that you have something submitted. Okay, assessment scheme. So this assignment is worth a little bit more than assignment 1. It's 25% of your total course mark. And the split is the same as assignment 1, where it's 80% for how many tests you pass, the auto marking, the actual performance of your code, and then 20% style, so similar to assignment 1. And this will be hand marked by tutors. So yeah, make sure you are keeping style in mind. So yeah, same breakdown as well as assignment 1, where you can get 100% if you have for performance, if you have fully working stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's a little bit less for each stage. Style, this is again almost the exact same as assignment 1, except we took out the part talking about main, because you don't need to bother dealing with main and keeping it under 50 lines since you don't have a main function. So other than that, it should be very, very similar. And then here's some more plagiarism stuff as well. Don't plagiarize. Illegal elements as well. If you do use anything that is explicitly banned, your style mark will be capped at 16 out of 20. And then, yeah, plagiarism, don't do it. Due date, so this is due 19th of April, which I think is week 10 Friday. Yeah, week 10 Friday, so you've got 2.5 weeks. So you should have plenty of time to do that. And again, it might be easier to, before you start, go to this week's tutorials, attempt this week's labs, then you'll be in a better spot to start this assignment. And so I think all the late penalties should be the same as assignment 1. So it's all there, 5% per day off the ceiling. And down the bottom, this is important if you are running locally and you downloaded the zip file. Make sure double check this every now and then when you remember. We may make changes, we have made changes before. But if it's a really, really big change, we'll probably make an announcement, otherwise it shouldn't affect you too much. And again, if you notice anything weird or wrong or anything like that with the assignment, please just let us know and we'll look into it and hopefully fix it up. So I think we'll end there. Any questions? No? Okay, cool. Yeah, then I think that's it. Hopefully you like this assignment and good luck. Okay. Okay, I will end the stream. Yay!